I'm going to take you through the exact steps, the exact skills that I want my horses to be able to have in preparation for their very first ride. In this particular training session, it's a real raw training session from the Indiana Equine Roundup just this last March, working with a student, so you're gonna get the best of both worlds of seeing me work with this horse to help this horse continue to develop in their education and prepare for that first ride, but also work with one of my students there to help her develop her skills, go through some of the common mistakes that people make, and that can help you, ultimately help you with your horse at home. And so we're gonna go through starting this video with some basic groundwork, but really focusing on getting this horse to focus in a very busy environment, to develop deeper relaxation. We go into belly roping and plenty of more throughout this video. And as I mentioned, you're gonna get the best of both worlds because you get to see me work with a horse and a student that is learning the process, work with this horse. And I've gotta tell you, I gotta put a disclaimer on this, is why I'm doing this intro now, is that this horse is very emotional, very, very emotional, quite cranky, quite grumpy, and borderline aggressive. And so one of the things that I think is really important that we need to understand is that the approach that you see me take with this horse that has this type of mindset, some people, the comment section is going to be on fire because there's gonna be plenty of people thinking that you should get more firm, you should get into that horse, be more confrontational, and really get that horse to stop acting that way. But the approach that you'll see me take, some will call it more passive. And the thing that in my horsemanship experience, in the way that I train horses, in my approach to this, is that we have to be very careful of what we invest energy into because we get more of that. If we put more energy into addressing a behavior that we don't want, sometimes we get more of that behavior. But when we understand that we need to take that energy, whether it's negative energy, it's a bad mindset, it's crankiness, it's grumpiness, it's aggression, that is still energy. And sometimes what we can do with that energy, because we cannot destroy it, we can redirect it. We can get it headed in the direction that we want to go. And so there's an understanding of when to address an issue and also when to not make issue of something, but yet focus, put our energy into what we want to be happening with our horses. And you're gonna see that throughout this. And the proof is in the pudding. You'll see this horse transform from quite emotional, quite tense, not breathing very well, to becoming way more relaxed, way more willing, way happier, way softer through their mind, their body throughout this one session and even throughout the weekend. So let's go ahead and get into it, but that's my disclaimer. The comment section is gonna be on fire, but the proof is in the pudding and how this horse transforms in the next 45 minutes. So enjoy the real raw training session. See you there. I can tell, and Lady's gonna laugh at me here in a second, is that Lady has a very calm, low type energy, right? Fair enough to say. So one of the things is that we have to be interesting to our horses, okay? So can I take her for a second? And one of the things is with your energy level is really good, but then there's a lot going on, right? Right. So step back for a second. And so what I'll do, she's like, Mom, where are you going? Right? One of the things that I'll do is I'm going to bring my energy up to where, and this horse doesn't know me, and I'm going to start to give her something to pay attention to. Okay? So Lydia's doing a really good job of getting the body to move over, but then I'll want to step in and say, hey, I'm going to bring my energy up so that I can give you something to listen to. Okay? So I'm going to hand her back to you in a second. And notice there, like when she got a little, her emotions were rising, she started to get a little tight. That's totally fine. I say, well, if you're going to get emotional and nervous about something, then the first thing that I can do to help you de-escalate that is for you to focus on me. That's right. So I just waved this flag and gave her something to focus on. She went out to the end and I just held this rope. That rope came tight and she's like, oh, now I can come back to you. Okay. So step in here really quickly. Does that make sense for you guys? All right. All right. Yep, send her shoulders. There you go. Now, let her stop. This is going to be fun because I love teaching, right? When I say send her shoulders, that's pretty vague, right? Kind of. But you have to know, when I tell you to where to send her, when I say send her shoulders, you got to know exactly where you want them to go. Yes. Okay? So step back in front of her. Where are you gonna, I want you to send her to the left, but where do you want her left front foot?
Not that far, but.
Okay. Here? There? Okay. That's where you want it? All right.
I think that's about it.
Okay. One thing, and I'm going to point this out, is that's really far to the side, right? If she takes this step here, she's going to be right here, and the second step's going to be here. We'll see how much closer she is to you. So one of the things is that if you were standing right in front of her, think about yourself as the center of a clock, all right? Think about her being at 12, okay? On that left side, you're gonna point your hand towards like 11, right? So I would be looking for this foot to step about here. So it's gonna step diagonally back. That way the left front foot can step over, and now she's done a turn on the haunches, and now she can circle around you, but she makes close to, with 2 steps each, she'll make a 90-degree pivot, then continue forward around you, okay? Ideally, yeah, and she can do it. Yeah, direct, there you go. Okay, and there you go. And we're just using, like, when you guys see, when we get that particular with where we want our horse to step, that's a deeper level of clarity, and it gives her something to focus on. That in itself is mental pressure for horses, because you might have a horse that has had kind of vague instructions their whole life, and then maybe I step in and take a hold of them, and I'm being like, I want your feet right here, and they're like, no one's ever been that particular with me, and that can bring on some mental stress with certain horses, but it gives them something to focus on. There you go. Nice. So leadership with horses to me is the ability to influence the horse, right? And the ability to influence the horse, and the horse do what we want them to do and not get emotional, not get upset, but be a willing partner in that with us. And so when we're preparing these horses for this first ride, we're wanting to establish some influence over those feet and make sure our horse is in a good mindset. So we've started to get that influence over her feet, but now I want you to send her around and then just ask her to trot around you a little bit. I don't want to cut this horse loose yet, because there's a high chance that she'll just mentally disconnect, and then that wouldn't be setting us up for success, because we're turning this into a round pin session, and ultimately we're not trying to spend 40 minutes just trying to get her thinking back to us, right? We can, with keeping this horse on a halter right now, we can start to get this horse. So like, see just the emotions that come out with asking her to do a little bit more. Well, some people might realize she's walking around fine, she's right, we can strap a saddle to her, but if she's kind of crabby with just moving out to begin with, and then we strap a saddle to her and she's holding her breath and she's not actually breathing, you might run into a horse that's just tighter in the barrel and they feel like they've got a hump in their back. And so with a young colt, guys, don't read into these emotions too much. Like, don't get yourself kicked, don't get yourself hurt. But with these young horses, like her just going like, yeah, I'm a mare, I'm gonna be bossy. And I love mares. Like, I'll ride a mare before a gelding any day of the week. Like, and I love mares, because I think if you get them on your side, you got them forever, right? It's kind of a little bit of a negotiation game sometimes. And so with her, what I'm focused on is what we want from her. Okay, so there you go, good. So go ahead and change directions. Good. And when she does that right there, like when you change the direction, just say, just go forward. Okay, just go forward, right? Because if I were to get on, if either one of us, Lydia or I, were to get on her and she was to get kind of like, just kind of playing around, what are we gonna do? We're gonna say, put the leg on and just go forward, right? And so instead of being like, why is she pinning her ears? Why is she being snarky? It's like, hey, you know, she's a sassy filly and she's pretty good looking. So, you know, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. It will fade. It will go away with consistency. But some people want to get into a fight with them and be like, oh, that's bad. It's like, well, with consistent work, it will go away, right? There you go. Big deep breath. Good.
And just giving her, I'm glad you're giving her the time here because that just lets her kind of take it all in, settle on it. Okay. Do you mind if I belly rope her real quick? Okay. I'm going to do that just to feel it out because it'd be interesting to see with how she is emotionally. And then will you grab your saddle and your saddle pad and throw it on the fence? That'd be awesome. But if she locks up a little bit, so with any pressure, anything, whether it's a rope, a flag, I don't want her to resent it, right? Right now, she's not super happy about it. And that association to physical pressure is not a beneficial one because that's like my leg, right? If she's this upset about, there, I like the softness that she brought back into the rope. There you go. You notice how she wants to stop to accept that. She wants to completely get her feet stopped to make it kind of go away. I want her like to see her there. I want to see her try to stay moving when I place this flag on her because the saddle's going to be attached to her and she's going to have to move. There, just a little bit softer all the way through. And I'll use this flag right close to where the leg will be. That way, and I'm not like flogging her completely there. Good. See how she's starting to settle while her feet are moving? And so that's so important. Then, like, it drives me crazy with the desensitizing stuff that has gone on because people think it's really cool to get your horse like tied up with a bunch of pool noodles and tarps and stupid crap like that. And all they've done is like basically dulled the horse up completely. And you need a horse to be sensitive and sensible is how I like to put it. You want a horse that is responsive. There you go. And so I'll wait. She's still kind of holding her breath. So we'll give her a second, but I want her to feel like, hey, this physical pressure on the end of this flag, it's here to help you focus. The more you focus, the more you can relax. The more that you relax, the more we can actually teach you something. And this can be beneficial. This can be something you can look forward to. That way, her confidence should build by doing this. And there you go. And so it's not so much what she does as it is how she does it, right? There. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like she still swished her tail and got a little crabby about it, but it's becoming less. And some of you guys may be like, well, at what point do you actually step in and start to address the behavior? And there'll be a point, and I can't say how many days or even if it's a week or 2 weeks, there'll be a point at which you're like, okay, we've given you as much benefit of the doubt as we can, and you might step in there and say, enough's enough. But so many people do that too soon, okay? So many people do that part too soon. And I want to be gracious with them to where we can actually set these horses up to be happy about what they do. So in alignment, right, with preparing these horses for first ride. Have you belly roped one? Okay. Sorry, I'm battling music here.
I have used my 22 foot I was telling you about before that.
Okay. Let me start with this, and I might have you step in with it, just that way you can get a little feel for how to go about it. I mean, this is 60 foot of rope, so it's a little bit more. And so I bumped her there just because I was moving away and she's kind of coming up to me. And is she cowbred or anything? Don't know. Okay. Even if she was cowbred, it's no excuse. I'm not the cow. Okay. Like, I don't care if she gets a little crabby about certain things. But as far as like, even when I'm in the field with my horses and they might be a little pushing each other around. Like when I walk in there, I expect to be the equalizer, right? If you guys are having shenanigans amongst yourselves and the boss horse is pushing another horse around, when I step in there, that wasn't what we were going for. It's a version to do it. Can you step through that? Or are you going to drag your feet? I was trying to catch the hind foot. This is not what you would do. We're going to get her practice being roped by the hind foot here in a second, which would be fine. We can do this too. I like to roll with it. There we go. So this will actually be just as beneficial as the belly rope. And part of this, like working with these horses sometimes can just take a little creativity, and she's like set this up and wasn't necessarily in the plans. But with her having a little difficulty with that physical pressure, I just want her to start to get a feel for moving off of this rope, off this physical pressure. And so this was what I'd really do if I was preparing one to be roped off of and getting used to this, or if anybody put blankets on their horses for the winter, especially up here, right? So getting them used to those blanket straps, but it's much more than that to me. It's her getting comfortable and confident with that physical pressure of accepting what that feels like. So my timing is I'm going to pick up when her foot's about to come off the ground. So right here, now. And so with some of these horses that can get a little upset, how many ways can you drag the new rope? Okay. She's just getting more experience with feeling that physical pressure and figuring out that it's nothing to be upset about, but she can actually respond to it, get more focused, get more relaxed, and come all the way through. So now we're going to go back to our belly roping deal here. And you guys see how this is not so much what we do, but it's also how we go about doing it, and realizing that even the day-to-day interactions that you have with your horse are super connected to everything you do with them, right? How you handle them, put them in the trailer. You're going to step right through it again. There we go. Anybody that's in a ranch rodeo, you don't want me on your team because I can rope horses, but I can't rope anything else. I can rope cattle. I'm not your guy. Okay. Okay. So always start right up here at her barrel, and I want her moving just to where she has it on her, and which is why we want to go through that groundwork to where I can get her moving out first. Then as she's moving, I'll take this up and tighten it up, and I'll get it just tight like it would be when you're doing your belt, putting your belt on. It's not super tight. I'm not trying to cut her in half. You guys can see how she's licking and chewing. She's dropping her head, like all the outward signs of the relaxation that she'll have, and that has to start inside of her, right? It all starts inside of these horses, okay? And she can get crabby. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm more focused on like, hey, what are we doing together here? And I felt like I was just going to bump her there a little bit because that's where the leg's going to go. And she's sticky enough that to put a first ride on this one, especially with the clinic coming up tomorrow morning, like we need to get it some forward. And so I don't want to bump on them and just completely get them upset. But with this particular horse, we're just working with what we got. I want her to feel like she can move. Like if she's upset, you can be upset. You know, like you think about if she's this upset about certain things, right? What's the first step to her being better about this? Is it her being happy about it? Or is it her just not being upset about it? Right? Like sometimes it was like, why can't you just be happy? It's like, well, the first step to just being happy is just at least don't be so upset about it. Right? And then once you're okay with it and you're tolerant of it, then you might learn that you can be happy about it later. Right? So she's kind of at this phase where she's a little bit crabby, and it's totally fine. It doesn't bother me a bit. She gets to sleep with her attitude. So that right there is a little concerning. Has she been like that? When she leans into me that way, like that's a bit aggressive. Like really kind of like I'll push you around and like we're not gonna have any of that. What are you saying? Sorry, Lydia was saying that like she's kind of had this tendency that when she gets pretty upset about something that she's pretty willing to get brave about it. And fair enough, like I haven't really been so concerned about this until you guys probably saw it when she was right over here where she started pinning her ears at me and she kind of leaned at me like I might just come after you. And I'm just gonna let her know I don't recommend that because I will bop her if I have to, because if it's her or me, it's gonna be her. But the reason, with that being the case, right, she's been a little upset. This is, obviously Lydia's gonna ride her Western saddle. There you go, there's a nice change. Now keep moving your feet though. Right, so I went ahead and let that rope slide to the back because she was getting, her focus was coming too much to me, right? She started maybe plotting something that she might regret plotting. And so this way, even with this rope in her flank, this is gonna take the attention off of me because she's gonna have to sort this out. This is, you guys will see how much slack I let bounce through this rope and my hand stays open so that way I'm not pulling on her flank. And I'm a big fan of doing this with all types of horses. I've done it with a lot of restarts that have never had this done because it's a different way for them to, gives them a new experience to think through physical pressure. There, and you guys, if you can see her eyes, like she's blinking really big, and there was a big deep breath. And so you can't rush this stuff, right? When you start in on particular things like this, I'm looking for the softness in her feet, the changes in her body expression. And so we want to keep it fairly objective with these horses. Like, a lot of times people want to make it me versus her. Like that attitude, you can be like, it's personal. She's going to come after me. And it's like, she'd do it with anybody in here, right? So it's not so much, it's not personal. It's something that is not desired in her behavior. And we have to set up an experience for her to redirect it. It's all energy. It's just bad energy right now. So how do we turn it into positive energy, right? Well, I try to set this up. You're just very pleasant. I just asked you to move your feet. And so even in this case, right, that was a nice change, right? Okay. Do you want to do that with her on the other side? You want to? Okay. So this is, anybody that gets the idea of judging this, I'd highly recommend you don't, because I'll throw you in here tomorrow and you can give it a go, because this is not easy, right? Like doing this is like walking, chewing gum, patting your head at the same time, right?
And rubbing your belly.
Yeah, whatever all those things are. So when you put this rope on her side here, you want this you want it to go over like this, because you want the Honda on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, and like you can even just put it over her head, build a loop if you want to, or you can use some fancy roping skills.
No.
We already talked about that, didn't we? There you go. And what we'll do, Lydia, when you get to that side, is we'll go straight to the flank. Okay. And so tying this, as she gets that rope sorted out, as we get this set up for that first ride, this, obviously in this case, where we're at with this particular horse is we have to get her mind and emotions in a better place before we ever think about anything else. Her accepting the saddle, we're already started that. We've been able to touch her with a flag. We've been able to put this rope over and get her used to that for the cinch. And it's not about doing a bunch of crazy stuff, but it's really about getting their mind and emotions in check, really getting them prepared that way. There you go. Hey, you did it faster than I did. There we go. Good. Yeah, and then just make sure that you keep, like, I usually keep my index finger in between these coils. There you go. That way you can keep it all separate. Yeah. And so to get her to move off, yeah, just try to use some energy and let that rope hang. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Step back. Give her more rope. You're way too close. Yeah. You want to be further away. Push her away and feed rope. There you go. Because you guys, the rule of thumb is further away than the hind feet. Okay? You don't want to be within hind foot reaching distance. And yeah, soften your hand. You just want to try to keep it there. And this is where the tricky part comes in, that when they go to bouncing, being able to go with them in that. Yep. There you go. And so it becomes a lot of, when they get further away, you feed them some rope. When they get closer, you're constantly coiling and scaling up that rope as well. There you go. Then take a hold of her. There you go. Yeah. Take a little bit more. Yeah, just a touch. There you go. And what you guys will be able to see, but she will be able to feel, is that when you go to take a hold of that rope, you'll be able to actually feel their body. And do they feel tight and tense, like they're leaning and bracing into it? Or do you take a hold of it and they feel soft, just like when you go to pet one and they're in a good state of mind? And so there might be moments where lady goes to take a hold of it and she draws the slack out of that rope, and her body feels soft and she's accepting of that. Then you could easily just stop, right, in that moment. Yep, send her forward. See if you can kind of keep her trotting around just a little bit. There you go. That's totally fine. There you go. Good. Yep. If she drops that hip into you, you can throw that lariat rope towards her hip and say, you can drive her out that way. Yeah. Yep. If she were to come in, I'd just kind of send that rope down towards her hip, like your hand towards her tail. And because you're tied, right? Your hands are tied. How much are you going to do? So if she were to pop that hip into her, then take that rope, keep going. But you take that rope right here and just come back here. And I'd tap her more in the hip there, so I'm not pulling on her flank.
Right.
I can just tap her in the hip and drive her forward, and then I can come back up here. Here you go. Right, so when I contain that rope towards the back, I'm tapping her more on the hip and driving her forward versus trying to bump her in that sensitive part of her flank to get her to go. I will bump, you guys saw me bump her on the belly on the other side, but that was where my leg was going to be. Right, so I'm more willing to bump her there where my leg's going to be, because she's going to get a bump from my leg later. Okay. Good. Okay. She looks pretty good. So done. Right. It doesn't have to be perfect, y'all. It has to get better. We're not here to be perfect. We're just looking for better. If she still have areas where it could be better, heck yeah, absolutely. Right. But that's not what we're going for. Okay. Let's go ahead and tack her up. We'll get her untangled here. There we go. Here, I'll take that lariat from you. Get her tacked up. Is there any questions about that so far? Yes, sir.
When you first were having to go around, she sort of thumb on her head, basically a lot of attitude.
Sure.
Do you ignore it? Do you do a direction change?
Yeah. both, right? Do you ignore? So his question was like, when she was first started out, she had a lot of attitude and she was kind of tossing her head around. I'm real careful and I try to be mindful about where I'm putting that energy, right? So she's putting energy into the head throwing, but if she's putting energy in the head throwing, is she doing exactly what I ask her to? So is she, say she was trotting around and she's trotting like I want her to, but she's kind of giving me some head throwing antics. Well, if the trotting was sufficient for my request, then I'd ignore it. But let's say that she was throwing her head and I was trying to get her to move her shoulders over and she was too busy throwing her head in the air, I would just focus on moving the shoulders. And I'd ignore the head throwing. And if the head throwing was too excessive, let's put it that way, then I would just do something different. Be like, if you got enough energy to throw your head, then let's go do something else that requires you, that would be difficult for you to do when you're throwing your head. Does that make sense? So it's one of those instances, it's really important to where we have to address certain things at certain times, right? Which is about the vaguest way to put it. But we have to be careful of, I try to be focused on what are the things I'm trying to do. So when I come into a training session, even like this, we're looking for 2 to 3 things to improve, okay? So one of the things very beginning was she came in here and she was super distracted. Okay, so can we use some groundwork and get her to be able to focus in a very busy environment better? Okay, so that was one thing. Second thing was I felt like this horse was carrying a lot of tension in her barrel and she wasn't breathing properly. So then we can use the rope to go ahead and facilitate a learning experience to get her to focus and develop more better breathing. Then now we're kind of moving into the fact that she's saddled, hopefully in a better state of mind. We're gonna refresh the groundwork really quickly. Okay, into your flag. And so we want to, when I first saddled him, take her for a walk too. Just like you're gonna go meander. So when I saddle my colts for the first time, I used to saddle them up, cinch them up, untie them, and then just let them kind of walk off, and then I'd kind of push them around the round corral. I quit doing that several years ago. I don't know how many years ago it's been, because what do most of us do once we saddle our horses up, right? Well, if we're saddling at the trail, we might walk them to the arena, or we're gonna, unless you're saddling right where you're gonna go ride them, a lot of times we're gonna saddle them and lead them somewhere, lead them out of the barn to go outside and then step on them and those types of things. So watch that shoulder. See, like, that's a no-no on you. That wasn't so much her as it was you. Yeah, you do a lot of backing up, and that just invites her to push on you. And so, and this is you in this instance, and it's about 9 out of 10 people that are sitting out there, okay? And so when you're moving around, she needs to be mindful of you, okay? So when you go to change that direction, if you just want her to move over, back her up, then set her over, right? Kind of create, I call it the middle school dance rule. It's you, your horse, and room for Jesus in the middle, right? And it's your horse's responsibility to be able to maintain that distance between the two of you. However, you've got to uphold your end of the deal to hold that horse responsible for it, okay? So check your cinch. Yeah, same groundwork, but make sure you're moving those shoulders, okay? Yeah, flag up, there you go. You guys will notice, like I mentioned again there, like make sure that flag's up. Your horse is gonna go where they're looking, right? And so if that horse is some horses will look over the top of people if they get real pushy. And so, all right, lady, so when she came to that change of direction, she moved her shoulders, but you notice how she hangs her hips to the inside? That's the second piece to that, okay? So let me show you what I'll do, and I'm gonna do it one time, and then I'm gonna hand her back to you. So this is something that's really big, like right there. You guys notice how that hip just kind of hangs to the inside? And particularly with a horse like this, that could be dangerous, right? So I'll do the same thing here. And you notice I didn't whack her or anything like that. And so I'll bump her when the emotions get too high and she starts to escalate way too high, then I will bump on her and say, hey, come back to me, you're fine, right? But I didn't whack on her because I don't want, this horse already gets pissy when you go to smacking her. So I'll do as much as I can to not have to whack her. That fence helped me, right? Right through there where she got a little stuck, and then she's like, oh, I can't keep going back. So I just kept going with her because that fence helped me get her forward. There, now that was much better, wasn't it? All right, there. So right through here, sometimes if you notice that like that hip's hanging in there, you might be able to, there. Focus on that hip, and there she starts to settle through. I might be able to bring that, see, like that energy right through there is kind of causing her to get a little concerned. But I'll go straight to that hip. We're looking right at her hip, right at the point of her hip, stepping that direction. And so I want to just put a little contrast in for y'all. Yeah, there we go. She's freeing up, right? Really freeing up through. And if this horse had been really, really kind of sacked out and like gotten used to a bunch of stuff, and it would be a big problem to get her moving around because she's already she's kind of tight and tense. And if nothing meant anything to her and she had this attitude, it'd be really difficult to get her freed up. But the fact is that she hasn't had as much done with her, which is great because she has an attitude that we want to mold into something that's more positive and happy. And that flag is enough to create energy to get her moving around. And it gives us, we can work with that when the energy flows. But when the energy's stagnant because we've doled them up to all these objects, then it's a really difficult deal and it's really hard on those horses mentally, okay? So I want you to go through that just really quickly. All right, send her shoulders. There you go. And so when we start in this, like when I asked Lydia to send that horse off there, when we go to make that request, we want to like be as soft as possible because we set the tone for that horse. But if the horse escalates the situation, we have to meet them at that point. And so even in here, despite, there you go. Yeah. Watch your, yeah, there, bumper. Bump, bump, bump. Go to the hips. There you go. Hips, bumper on the halter. Yeah. Hips. So you keep going to the head. Hips. You ever dance? Not me. Okay, here. No, you just got to get in the right spot. There. So you got to get into this pocket of the hip here, right? You kind of end up here towards the head, and then the shoulders either lean into you or she shoots forward, right? When my shoulders close, the horses, like when you go through this groundwork, they shouldn't come past your shoulders, okay? But if you have that lead rope and you're coming towards the shoulder and you're doing this, doors open, right? You close that shoulder, come to the hip, then she shouldn't be coming past my shoulder. And if she shoots forward, I'm going to be short enough on the lead rope to bump her around and let the doors open for the hips to come through, okay? But when you're coming in here, if you have that left shoulder tipped open and you're kind of going towards the flag, you're just sending her, but you're sending her really straight. And she's going to lean on you because that's just in her tendencies right now. You guys see just a little shift in body position? It'll keep you safe. Okay. There you go. Oh, that was much nicer. Yep. Hips. See how she brought the energy up, right? You don't have to bring your energy up there. It's just smooth as fast, right? A friend of ours, Tyson Durfee, is a calf roper, right? And his big thing that when you go to one of his calf roping clinics is smooth as fast, smooth as fast. And so with this, the way that we can be quick is just to be in the right place at the right time and be smooth about it. So if she gets emotional and goes quick, you de-escalate, because what are we going to do when we ride her? If she just trots off and gets nervous, we're going to bend her around, get her to yield her hips, and disengage her hind end to be able to bring those emotions back down. And so I don't want to get to doing too much on the ground with these horses that I wouldn't be able to do under saddle. Like if I doesn't transfer, then we're spending a lot of time on things that aren't as practical because we're gonna have to get on their back and recreate that. So I wanna make sure that our approach is on the ground, right? See how the hips are hanging in. So you need to step towards the hips, wave that flag. And it doesn't have to be like crazy energy. It's like, hey, will you please just move those over? And then if she has some antics about it, then you meet her and mold that accordingly. There you go. That was nice. In this same body position, we want ideally, we want her looking the direction she's going, her inside front foot going towards her nose, and her inside hind foot engaging and tracking towards the middle of her body. Not disengaging over, but stepping forward and up towards her rib cage. And that would be the same body position that we want her to ride in later. So the position that we're looking for here for her to find, it's biomechanically correct, and it's the same position we'll be looking for. There you go. Good. It's like good music to get on her, right? There you go, good. Yep, bump, there. And so when that emotion comes up and she raises her head up because she's getting a little emotional, we take a hold of her face because her emotions and her minds and her thought process is going somewhere else. So we take a hold of her and we say, come back to me. And when we take a hold of her, if I have to bump her, I bump her as, some people go like, well, how firm do you do it? Enough to get her attention, but I don't want to do too much because I don't want to get her tight, nervous, and tense and anxious, okay? So there's a couple times where you saw when I had a hold of her and I bumped her pretty hard, but the level that I did that was, there you go, really nice. And I liked how, you guys see how it was a leg yield, that horse starts to step those shoulders over the side. That takes an emotional de-escalation. Good. All right. Let me have her for 1 second. I'm going to do one thing with her, and then we're going to be good. Sound good? Okay. So I'm going to do one exercise with her really quickly. And this is really good for their shoulders. This horse is real sticky in her shoulders. Having a straight fence conveniently in this case works out. You can do it on the round part too. And I'll step in behind these shoulders. I'm going to send those shoulders aside, then go with her. And just start to get a side pass started with this horse, okay? So I'll send her to the fence. There. And so I don't have much fence, and with her doing on the round part, it's going to be real difficult. But being able to send her up to this fence here. There. See how she came off that pressure? So that's even good just for good leading's sake. Now I need the shoulders to move here. Now I need the hips. Don't try it. I don't recommend it. He can't save you. You know him though. Okay. Right. Yeah, that's it. Here. That's going to be nice. See how that just flows right through? That's really, really good because I can start to get, you're looking for physical balance. Ideally, you want 2 to 3 steps before you ask them to stop. I ran out of fence. But that right there on some horses, you obviously want to go through getting the hindquarters, getting the shoulders first, but then being able to work on that side pass down the fence can be super helpful for these horses, especially with the mindset of this one, because to be able to do that in a good frame of mind, she's gonna have to be in a good frame of mind to do it well physically, okay? And of course, like when it comes later on, after she's more consistent work, then it's going to be directly applicable to her ridden development too, okay? Good? Oh, I want to quit her. There, I think we're in a good place with that, and then we're going to work with her again in the morning. So, good job with the ropes. Good job. What's that?
I like working with
That's good. All right, you guys give Lydia a round of, okay. Woo! What do you call her?
Lou.
Lou?
Luella. Lou.
Luella, okay. You need to live up to the cute name.